So today you join me on the Gainsborough Lake. We've just drained down and netted the Stewarts, which hasn't been done in 4 years. We've drained it down, netted it to check on the stock. We've removed any unwanted species and we've done a load of bank clearance. So if you haven't seen that, check out my previous video. But our next project is this lake. And this has got the best stock of fish on Shatterford. You've got carp to £36.8, you've got catfish to 102, and you've got grass carp to 34. So today I'm going to take you for a walk around the lake. I'm going to talk to you about the history of Shatterford, how it became to be what it is today as it's gone through a long process, and what we're going to do and how we're going to net it. So this lake is around 19 foot deep. So to net this pool, we've got to take 9 to 10 foot off the top of the lake to actually get the net through it. And this is because our net is 10 foot deep. So it's been on to drain for around 6 days so far. And you can see it's dropped a good 4 foot, which is quite good going for 6 days of draining. So the plan is, where I'm stood right now is the shallow end of the pool. Everything around the island is around anywhere from 6 to 8 foot. So when we get the level to where we want it to be, this area will be completely empty. There will be no water left in this part of the pool at all. And then we're going to drag the net from that far dugout straight across the front of the island over to the grass bank and drag it to the far bank you can see over there. And then we'll have all the fish in one area. We'll be able to sort through them individually, take photos of them, weigh them, and show you the stock that's in this lake. The 730s in here, the biggest catfish we've got. I'm very excited to show off these fish. To help you understand why we're going to the extent of taking all the water out this lake and netting it, I think I need to take you back to when it was first built so you can understand what we're trying to achieve. So this lake was built in around the 70s, 80s, and there was a lot of time and effort gone into this pool. There used to be a 2-3 foot wall, which is this part is still existing, all the way around the lake, and slowly over time that has fell in. As you can see, this is starting to give way now, and all of that is already gone. And over the years, we've been taking the block work out of the lake. But this corner especially, I'll attach a photo now so you can see what this corner used to look like. This is the old bridge that's in the picture that's on the screen now. And it's changed a fair bit, to say the least. And then as we walk down this far side, all of the wall has gone and completely fell in. But as we get a bit further down this bank, we've got a building that is known now as Big China. And I'll show you some photos of when that was built back in the day. So this building is known as Big China, and it used to have a massive 2-story roof on, which looked amazing in its heyday. I'll attach a picture now of it being built, and it was quite an icon of this lake. It was, the reason it was Chinese styled is because there was quite a few koi in this lake at one point. If you research koi water gardens, the old owner back in the day tried to make it a koi lake that you could feed the fish. You could walk around, no fishing at all, you could walk around and feed the fish. They used to sell the boilies and pellets in here to throw in for them, mainly floater pellets. And there also used to be some tanks at the back of this with some koi in. Over the years, the roof deteriorated and it wasn't safe for anyone to be fishing underneath that. And to fix it, it was more work than it was worth. So we decided to rip the roof down, put a nice flat roof on it, and we've turned it into 2 double fishing cabins. So you can fish straight out of this onto the double peg, which is known as Big China. There was another building just down here which you can see. I'm going to attach a photo now, and there's actually a tractor sat here with loads of blocks on a trailer, and you can see them unloading the walls and building them. Now obviously all of these have now fell in, there was just the concrete foundations left. This wall is still standing. The reason that's gone is because as the water's been kicking into the bay, it's undercut the wall and it's fell in. But this little building over here is now known as Little China. So this used to be an old CCTV hut on the pool. There's cameras everywhere. I don't know if you can see it on this, but there's a big pile on there with a massive camera on. They're dotted around the whole place and used to monitor them from inside this building. So what we decided to do, obviously we wanted to open it as a carp fishing lake and a catfishing pool again. We turned it into a log cabin for the fishermen. So I'll put a photo of before, what it looked like before, and then what it looks like now. Yeah, I won't get too close because the generator is quite loud. We've got a bit of a pump running there to keep the oxygen high. And it's made a massive difference. The lads use it now. It was an unusable building, you couldn't use it for anything, so we decided to give it a bit of purpose. We kept the original roof and we've built a log cabin off it so you can fish from it straight off into this peg. This is the generator. It's running an 18,000 litre an hour pump just to keep the oxygen a bit higher. The oxygen's completely fine, but at this moment there's a lot of fishing struggling, so we're keeping that running just to keep it tip top, especially because we're draining it as well. And then this here is Little China. Nice little cabin. It does need a lick of paint and we'll be doing that, but it's very cosy compared to your bivvy. So the Gainsborough started off its life as a trout fishing lake. People come from far and wide to fish this pool, and they catch some decent sized trout. The biggest one I saw out, or got a picture of, it's actually taxidermied. I've got it in a big glass cabinet. I think it was around 19 pound or something like that, which was a decent sized trout. So it stayed trout, as did all the other lakes, for a long time, and there's still some YouTube videos on it. If you type in Gainsborough trout fishing at Shatterford, it will come up of people fishing it. And it was very popular. So after its years of being a trout fishery, it then changed in the early 2000s, or maybe just before, to a carp and catfish fishery. So they stocked a load of carp, they stocked a load of catfish, and they let them grow, and they grew to some amazing sizes. So in 2005, it was throwing out fish up to 40 pounds carp wise, which was insane for the time. I mean, back then a 20 pounder was a great fish, let alone a 40 pound carp, and it was throwing out catfish to 47 pound ace, which was the lake record at the time in 2005, which again is a colossal catfish. I mean, you look at this day and age, you've got catfish to 102 pounds, you've got carp to 60s, 50s, but back then that was a serious fish. So this pool grows fish for fun, which is why when they stocked it with carp and catfish, it did so well. Now there's a couple of reasons for this. The first one is there's two natural springs that feed this pool. There's one just here, and then there's one over there. This one on the left is fed by 6 individual tiny little lakes, and there's no fish in them. They are left, they are weeded up right to the top, and they've got naturals, everything in there, which feeds directly into the lake. And this one comes from a natural spring right at the top of the bank. So the water in this, there's no second-hand water. It hasn't gone in any lakes beforehand. This is straight from the bank into the pool. So the water quality is perfect, especially for growing fish. So after the carping course in 2005, it then got turned into a fish farming lake because it grows fish so well. This was then closed to the public for 15 years while they fish farmed it, and then I think it was 2 or 3 years before I bought it in 2019 that it was just left. Now the problem with it being left was it created a lot of weed growth. Because of the pools above, which I just mentioned, were full of weed, this all came down and they started growing in the shallow end of the lake. So that was a problem for a few reasons. Literally from about here all the way across there, you cast a lead and it would land on top of the weeds. You couldn't fish it, you were getting snagged up, it was impossible. So we had to do something about it. So we started dragging the weed out of the lake with a weed rake, and then we blue dyed the pool. So what blue dye does is it stops the light getting to the bottom of the pool, so the plants can't grow, there's no photosynthesis happening. And then over a course of about 2 years, we finally got it under control, and it's as clear as it is. So that was the first step in turning this lake back into a carp and catfish fishery like it once was, and hoping that these fish grow like they once did. So once we dragged the weed, we then had the problem of taking all of the rocks out of the lake. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this video, as you can still see over there, there's still some of it left. This whole lake had a wall going all the way around, and over time this wall has fell in. We spent a lot of time draining this lake down, much like we are doing now, and taking out all of these rocks. There's still loads of them sat on the side of the lake now from when we did that 4 years ago. There was a lot of them. A lot of these we've used to pin down the otter fence, which runs around the whole of the complex, but there's a lot of them. So these are the ones that are left over that didn't manage to go on the fence, and I'm sure I'll come up with a use for them one day. But we took all those rocks out. That was the next problem. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see it too well on this camera, but the island, we did exactly the same thing. That had walls going all the way around it, and as you can see now, we split all the walls up into individual blocks, and we piled them on the island, so it will clear the bottom, so the bottom is crystal clear now, you can fish that. And it's also holding the island together, so none of the island can fall away from erosion. It's staying as is, it will stay that big. So that was a massive task. It was monumental. It took ages, but it's something that had to be done. We had to clear the bottom of the lake, we had to pick up the mess, which is a bit of a shame because in its day it looked amazing, but time has wore it down and it was pointless rebuilding it because that's an even bigger job. So once we took that down and we'd sorted the weed problem out, it was time then to net the pool, just like we are doing now, to see if there's anything left in it. So we dragged a big net through it. There was a lot of silvers, probably a handful of carp, nothing over kind of 8 pound that was left over from when this was a fish farming pool. So we took those fish out, we put them in our stock lake, which is just behind this one, so it's not too far. And then we had the fun process of stocking this lake with our own fish, so we know exactly what was in. So right now we're on a blank canvas, we've got an empty lake. What are we going to stock it with? We brought around 40 carp, up to 22 pounds. I'll start firing some pictures on the screen now. We bought a lot of them. 40 was the optimal number to start with to see how they got on. And the biggest was 22 pound, the smallest was probably 15 pound. The biggest now, 4 years later, is 36 pound 8. Now that is some serious growth. So this pool still had it. It still grew fish for fun because of the inlets and all the natural food and the amazing water quality. It still grew fish. So I knew I was onto a winner. We then stocked a load of grass carp. The biggest one was about 25, 26 pound, which at the time I thought was a massive fish. The biggest now is 34 pounds. And then the catfish, biggest we had was around 60. The biggest now is 102. And as I've just said, there was a lot of silvers in here when we netted it. So I can only imagine they were just surrounded by food permanently. The only reason I know the size of the fish now compared to when we netted it is because they have been caught by anglers. We haven't netted this lake since we stocked all those amazing fish. So this will be the first time we get to see them all in one area. We get to properly have a look at them, weigh them, see what they look like, put the photos out on Facebook and the videos on YouTube for you all to see the stock that's in this pool. But how we've done it, so we've de-weeded it, we've got rid of most of the rocks out of the lake, we've tidied it up, we've changed Big China into a cabin, we've changed Little China into a cabin, and there's so much more work gone in for that. We dug the car park out. We had to dig a car park out as there was no car parking at all. Obviously being a fish farming lake, you didn't really need to get cars up here other than one car. So we've done a lot of work to it. So I'm very, very excited to get in the pool, drag a net through it and show you all the fish. I'm really hoping all the work that we put in over the last 4 years has turned it back into what it once was, throwing up those colossal fish for the time. 40 pound in 2005, that is a massive fish, and in 4 years we're already on 36 pound 8 from a 22 pound fish. I'm pretty sure this pool is going to throw a 40, 50, maybe even a 60, who knows, in the next couple of years. I have no doubt about it, and I'm very much looking forward to following the process through and seeing how big we can get these fish. But for now, we're on the 4-year mark. We've got to net it to actually see how the fish are getting on. As I say, there's 7 known 30s in here, there could be more. There's catfish up to 102, it could be even bigger now. There's grass carp to 34, who knows what that might throw up. It might be 36 pound now, you just don't know. So we're going to drag a big net straight across the front of this island, straight over to the far side, and we'll show you all the fish. This is going to be in a couple of weeks time, and there's going to be a full YouTube video on everything that we catch out of this lake. But for now, I took a load of drone videos in July of this year to show you what it's looking like now compared to what it did. I've shown you all the photos and the history and spoke to you about that. So let's show you what we've created as a carp and catfish fishery from a derelict, weeded up, and a pool that was in very much need of a lot of TLC. This is what it's looking like now.